Morning, everybody. It is 8:26 a.m. It is April 18th. Hope everybody had a good day yesterday. Earnings are in focus. We held some key levels yesterday. So, some of the levels I talked about came to fruition yesterday. Yesterday was not a big moving day, but basically just held some key levels, kept that bullish bias for the meantime. We got some news today. We'll go over that. Of course, let's start off with a quick introduction. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use volume profile, market profile, supply and demand to construct trades. Just like yesterday, most trader prices of the week and the month, very important. They held yesterday, so we'll get into that today. And we come up with game plans, basically based on that market structure. Of course, trying to build this channel. Give me a subscribe. You can't help me subscribe. Set alerts. Share with friends. That'd be great. And of course, always find me on Twitter. Gonzo719. I added those to my YouTube channels now, so you can see the links for my Instagram and that. Why don't we get into that watch list? Okay. And look at what's going on with the futures right now. All right. Let's see here. Bitcoin over 30K, up 3.16%. Ether up 1.68. Nasdaq's up 1.75. Silver's up 0.55. Russell's up 0.51. Gold's up 0.51. ES is up 0.46. The bonds being bought, which is going to send yields lower, up 0.24. The Dow is basically flat. Goldman Sachs is very heavily weighted, which we'll get into that. That had a negative miss on revenue, so that's going to pull down the Dow. Crude is down. Very interesting because China is saying that, it looks like their economy is on track, but crude is showing weakness, down 0.33. VIX is down 0.35. Dollar is down 0.41. 10-year yield is down 0.58. Okay. Let's go over to stocks I love to trade. Our coin getting some love, up 3.51%. Obviously, Bitcoin up, helping that. Nvidia is up 2.4%. HSBC upgraded it. It's getting a lot of love via that upgrade. Okay, BABA. I just talked about the China recovery happening. It's on track to from all the COVID restrictions. So that's getting love, 2.36%. Snow's up 1.2%. AMD up 1%. Sympathy play for Nvidia. All right. Is there a laggard? Yes. That laggard is Goldman Sachs. Missed revenue on their earnings, sending it down 3.47%. Now that's also getting some sympathy from some other financial stocks. So let's look at the next one. Okay, that's top sector stocks, right? Roblox up 1.37%. Johnson & Johnson just reported earnings, and they talked about a new cancer drug helping revenues. They forecasted some good guidance, so they're up 1.29%. All right, Qualcomm Semi, so that's getting some love. Is there a laggard? Of course there is. So JP Morgan is only down slightly, but Morgan Stanley. Now, Morgan Stanley reports, they report tomorrow before the market. So they are getting a little down 0.5% due to Goldman Sachs. Okay, let's move on to sectors. It's going to be no surprise here. Leader is semis, NVIDIA, AMD, right? Followed by tech, which is also NVIDIA, AMD. Communications, and then at the bottom, pretty interesting, financials is not negative, but because Goldman Sachs is not going to just take it all down by itself, energy is the only little weakness here. That's about it. Okay, let's get into some news that we've already talked about. So, man, this browser is. Uh, let's see here. Give me 1 second while we pull up the news. All right, so let's get into some market news here. Okay, so Goldman Sachs, right? Stock fell 3.7% after the investment bank's first quarter profit dropped as a difficult 3 months for deal making eroded its fees. Right? Bank of America rose, Lockheed Martin rose, right? Nvidia, like I said, HSBC upgraded it, and that's all I want to talk about there. Let's see here. I'm gonna bring up one more thing. Just give me 1 second. All right. Talked about Bank of America, Johnson and Johnson. Apple opens its first India store. Okay. Johnson and Johnson. Let's see. I just wanted to see if there was something else. I can't remember. Of course, Google's still in some lawsuits. Apple, India. Let's see. Let's see. Credit Suisse. Okay. So let's get to some downgrades here. So we got Charles Schwab. JP Morgan cuts target price from 85 from 86, which is not much. M&T Bank Corp, they get an upgrade. Nvidia, there's the upgrade, right? Target price 355 based on AI chips driving earnings. State Street got killed. Obviously, they got downgraded. Let's see here. Companies reporting results. We already know about this. Of course, Netflix reports earnings after markets close. We got a bunch of corporate events here. Bank of America conference call, Johnson and Johnson, Goldman Sachs. So a bunch of stuff going on, and then of course Netflix, right? That's gonna probably wrap up the news. Let's get into some daily charts here. Okay, I'd like to start out with the year profile, volume profile here. You can see we're above the most traded price of the year, of the last year, and we're coming up to kind of like an area of, you can see this was resistance before here, right? So there's going to be some overhead supply here, and the market's at 416 right now. So let's just zoom in from the lows in October. Okay, so yesterday, we had that kind of doji day, the day before, and then yesterday we had a day where we kind of like, let's just zoom in a little more here. So yesterday we had a day of like, came down, made a hammer kind of. So we came down, had some weakness, held the level I spoke about in futures, and then we kind of like made it move higher, right? Didn't go to the days before high, but we made it move higher. Currently, we're at 415, about 416. So we're gapping higher. So we're about up here right now, right up here, above this level of 414. That will be a key level today for a pullback. All right. So that's what I'm looking at here. And you can see this is the overhead supply I talked about. So if we go above this range, I would like to see a pullback here and then possibly go to 417.44, which is the next resistance level. Okay. Let's look at the Qs. All right. So the Qs you can see here in the profile of the last year, This is the October lows, right? And then we just been basically in an uptrend, okay? But then we have this 320 resistance here, and we haven't been able to break above it, okay? But currently 321.13, we're about right here, we're above it. So you kind of like to see this pull back to see if this gets tested to go long. If the market stays strong, yeah, I'd like to see a pullback. I'm not going to chase it, right? But we've just been in this range for a while, and if we push out of this range, you're going to get some short covering, okay? But we just have to see. You do have Nvidia strong, but Microsoft, let's see, the big movers, Microsoft, well, Nvidia is one of those. Apple, they're up too, but we have to see, okay? But it is above this level right now. All right, let's look at the Dow. Remember, Dow has weakness from Goldman Sachs. So the Dow, notice this, very important to look at, right? This macro view. Here's the volume profile of the last year, okay? Where is Dow? The Dow right at the most traded price of the last year. So there's a lot of volume in this area. You can see it here. It's just a lot of traffic, right? The Dow is at 340 right now. So let's zoom in a little bit. So 340. So it's about right here at this highs. Okay. So there is shorts in here, and you could definitely see a move, but Goldman Sachs weakness could hold that back today. Now, who knows? Goldman Sachs might just rip from the open because it's already gapped down. So we can see this level is going to be key, 340, 353 in the Dow. But you were at the most traded price. Okay. So you can see that right here, 339 is the most traded price of the year. Could be a lot of choppiness here, so just letting you know that. Let's look at the Russell. Now the Russell's the weakest, okay, but there's a huge level of 179.10. It's been resistance, right? Let's look at the overall profile. Here's the year. We're above the most traded price of this year, of the last year, a year ago from today, and we're just in this range, and you can see it's like an ascending triangle. You can see that pattern where we're just hitting this resistance, resistance, resistance. You got a lot of the major moving averages above us. Still have not been able to break this 38.2 Fibonacci retracement level from these highs to these lows. So very weak. Okay. But the Russell right now is at 179.58. So let's just take it from here. So 179.58. That's about right here. So it's literally on the 38.2 Fibonacci, holding above this 179.1 level. Now you notice that's the pattern in each index. It's holding above a key resistance level right now. So each index is holding above a key resistance level. So, which is bullish, right? So that's the look at the indexes, okay? Now we can move over to our triple-headed monster. Which is the 10-year yield and the dollar and the VIX. All right, let's take a look at that. So the 10-year yield has really risen. All right, it's catching a bid, which means people are selling bonds. Okay, so bond market's kind of arguing with the equities. They're kind of not connected right now. So that's, you gotta, that's to note. That you really have to note that. All right, let's look at that VIX. All right, this is very important. Okay, so the VIX broke this, let's say 18, 17, 9 level. So it dropped. which is sending the markets higher, right? But the bond market's not agreeing with that. So we just made a new low, 16.78. 16s. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that in the last year. So the VIX is lower than it has been since the last year. So if let's look at the VIX in a weekly, that's not a weekly. Hold on. This is a weekly. The VIX has not been this low since, let's see, 2021. Or let's see here. Actually, it's been here. January 3rd, 2022. So very interesting. So getting some got a lower wick here. So we have to see. You can see you got to get a lower wick right here. So we'll have to see. But there's been a lot of it's been going down, which moving equities up, right? So let's look at that dollar, which is also we have that doji land I keep talking about. There's all these dojis, and that's just like I've never seen something like that's crazy. But then today we opened here. We're right here right now. We're about 101.73. So the dollar, usually when it goes down, it's good for equities, good for commodities, and good for the metals if it goes down. So have to keep an eye on the dollar. I think that's good enough for that, and then we can get into our market profile, volume profile. Hit you with the watch list really quickly, just to see where we're at. I'm gonna go right to the market profile, volume profile, right on the ES. Let's look at that. All right. So here's our ES. Let me get my trusty marker out. All right. So again, let's do what we normally do. Let's look at the market, right? Let's look at all the things that I like to look at. And first, actually, let's review. Let's review, right? Just really quickly. What did I say yesterday? That it needed to hold the most traded price of the week. Yesterday, right? And it did, right here. You see how it held it? And then moved higher. So I said, as long as we stay above these levels yesterday, that's bullish, right? Well, that held true because you had the early selling, and then this market's just bullish right now. You can't really, you can't really deny that. Let's look at the profile. Now you have some excess here at the top with this move overnight. So you have a profile of balance again still though. Okay. Now, what do? We're out of this range. We're kind of like I just said. I just talked about the SPY. We're holding out of the range. So this is kind of like the range high. Okay. We're holding above it. Now, we're coming into a supply zone right here. What you want to see is, let me give you the most traded price of the week. 41.45. 41.30 is the most traded price of the month. Okay. Of the rolling month. All right. So the rolling 30 days, the rolling 5 days. Okay. So we're above those. Bullish. Right. What do we need to happen? Well, when you run out of participants, you can see the volumes thinning here, obviously because it's just making a move. Okay. You want to see the most traded price of the week migrate up. If it can't migrate up and we keep going higher and higher and thinning out, we're going to come back down to value. It's going to run out of participants. Okay. So that's what you need to see. So we could make a move up higher today, no doubt. But then you have to sustain that by moving value higher. So I'm just going to take this chart down a little bit here. Okay, so like I said, today we could make a move, but then you got to decide, is it a test higher or is it a move? Right? So if we make a move, let's just say even if we come up to this supply zone, but we don't bring value with us, value needs to chase price, right? Or price comes back to old value. That's how that works. So we have to see. I don't know. Is this a test? Because at a balance, if you move and it's a test and you come back through the balance, you go to the other end of balance. That's balance rules. Okay? So I don't know. We'll have to know if it's sustainable or not. Get continuation or you don't. Okay. Now, let's look at our main levels. They're here. Price is above them. Bullish. Now we have a balanced profile, but we're moving. We're kind of breaking out of this range. So we have to look for a pullback to the top of this range. That would probably be a nice juicy long. Okay, but now we have to look at where we're at. Now if you've watched me for a little while, we're gapping higher. Okay, and gaps, this is a decently large one. It's about 16-point gap. Gaps are hard to read. Okay, so the way I look at gaps is I need to tell the market to tell me how strong this is, right? So let's look at that, right? So it's very easy. So the gap in futures is always looked at as the high, not the close. Okay, so this is a gap fill right here. And the easiest way to look at this is if we're gapping higher and we're up at the top of the range of the overnight session, right? The most bullish outcome, number one, is the most bullish, okay, would be a gap and go. And we could possibly hit this supply zone up here. We're already just nipped this supply zone, but let's just say that's a gap and a go. That's the most bullish, okay? Second is if we open somewhere in here and we come down a little bit, fail to fill the gap here, and we go higher. That's the second most bullish. Okay. Third, come down, fill the gap. There's a demand zone right here. Hey, Chief. Welcome, welcome, welcome from Vegas. You fill the gap here, touch this demand zone, and you move higher. To me, that's the most interesting long for me. Okay. So, this is how you want to judge the three bullish factors. The three bullish factors here. Gap and go. Gap fill to fill the gap and go. Fill the gap and go. Okay, well, we got to talk about the bearish ones, right? So what if we come down, fill this gap, start working into range, and now we're going back into range. Well, now the buyers aren't that strong, and that changes everything. So that's what I'm going to look for in the market. Okay, that's what I'm going to look for to see, okay, we're strong, we're not strong, and of course, what's going on with the market once it opens. Okay, so that's how we have to look at this. All right, let's get into some game plan here. I'm going to start with the long. So let's start with that long. Good with the ES trade plan here. All right. Let's look at that. Okay, so very easy here. Very easy for me. Okay, is I'm going to look for, all right, push higher. Great. If you go higher, you're going to go without me. However, what I'm interested in is a pullback to this demand zone, which is also would be a gap fill. And we can either pop out of it or kind of hold it, and the market kind of firms up, make some lower highs. That's your long. target this supply and overnight high at 41.98. Okay, 4200 psychological number in the future. So people might take profits there. And then if we hold, you might get a pullback. And if you hold one, you might get a pullback, and we might actually nip this supply here, which starts at 4213. Okay. Now, there's another demand zone here at the overnight lows that could be in the mix as well. So we could fill the gap. Remember, it is a little weaker, filling the gap and going in, but this demand could hold, even if we pop down and hold, and that could be your long. Okay, so think of the overnight low, which is 41.72, as your barometer to see weakness. You break this, you're most likely going down to the most traded price of yesterday. So if the short, let's talk about that short. Okay, obviously the short, because you got supply zone right here and a psychological number of 4200. Okay, you could come up in here and get weakness, 4200, people start taking profit, come down, fill the gap, that's your target one. Now you got demand zones here, so it's going to be tough. But if we get real weakness with volume, you're going to get cut through these demand zones and target the most traded price of yesterday. What's that? That is 41.62. Can you hold a runner? Possibly go down to the 9 EMA daily and this demand zone. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this is still bullish. We're above these key levels. Okay. Real danger, I'm not saying this happens, but in one day would be to break the most traded price of the week and go down to 41.30. I'm not saying that's in the cards, but if that happens, that's probably where we're going. So this is kind of what I'm looking at. All right. Remember the 4200 psychological level. And there's a huge overhead supply in the ES SPY. A lot of overhead supplies, so I don't see us just smashing through it, but anything can happen, right? All right. So remember the gap rules. Remember our key levels. And right here, very basic, right? Pull back to go long. Hope everybody is on the same page. Now we can go over to the NASDAQ. Let's see what the NASDAQ's doing. Now NASDAQ, very beautifully, when I talked about it yesterday, I said this level right here, right? This is the 130.80 level. Look at that. Held it like a champion yesterday. And then the market moved higher. I got long Google. Had some nice excursion on it, but it turned out to be a break even. Again, full transparency on that based on this move, and Google at the bottom of a range, even though it had it was down pre-market. Of course, when like I said, I'll be full transparent with you guys. When I took it, I had about 130% gain on it, and I thought it was going to break through my next level, hit my target. It didn't, and I basically was break even on it. And I was like, oh man, I should have took some off because it made a nice move. And then, of course, my original stop loss never got hit, and it winded up hitting one of my targets later, which is fine. That's just trading. You're never going to nail everything. You can always second guess yourself. But, yeah. So, like I said, I'll always be transparent with you guys. I'm not always going to talk about big winners. So, however, let's look at the NASDAQ, right? And if you notice in the NASDAQ, let's go here just really quickly. We got single prints in the overnight. I just want to see if I can. NASDAQ has so many ticks, that's why it looks a little crazy. but I want to show it to you guys so you see it. There we go. There's those white boxes, right? So these single prints, see that volume's real thin? Single prints, volume thin. This volume's thin too, but it has two-way trade. And here's the big moon right here, all thin volume. These are single prints automatically plotted by my plugin of the market profile. Okay, price is up at 132.89. You can't see it. I'm going to delete those single prints. So now you guys know there's single prints and thin volume. Okay. Okay. Just wanted to point that out. So we have emotional buying, single prints going up. Okay. But the Nasdaq's gapping higher, and Nasdaq's holding above these range highs here. So this was kind of like the range roughly. It's holding above it, bullish. Okay. But however, you do have a toothpick here. This is the toothpick. This is the elephant. Doesn't mean it has to fall and break. It did the other day. It does not mean it's going to break. It just means you have to notice that this is not being held up by good structure. Okay, they call this market structure. It's poor. The structure is poor. Just like think of a house. You want to have good foundation. This is not good foundation. So if there's weakness, look at all the volume up here. These are all longs. Well, guess what? If something happens in the market and it gets weak, this is going to come back and get cleaned up. And we definitely could land in this demand zone and rip higher. But it's not a good foundation. Okay? I'm not going to lie. I start licking my chops when I see that. However, this is bullish right now, so let's talk about that. Let's look at the overall picture. What do we have to look at, right? Let's look at our volume profile over the last week. Nice balanced profile. Now you see the volume's thinning out. Volume's thinning out, right? So we got a completed profile. However, obviously you could keep going up, but most likely the volume will get thinner and thinner and thinner. When the volume gets thinner and thinner and thinner, it's like a slippery, it's like a going uphill with butter. Right? You're barefoot and you got it's a rubber hill going straight up, or it's ice. That's kind of how, like, I could say the analogy is. All right, you're gonna come back down. All right. So big gap. Okay. And where's our key levels, right? Most traded price of the week's here. Most traded price of the month that held yesterday, right here. So we're above all those. So that's bullish, right? You got your bias has to be bullish right now. Price is way up at the top of the range. Pretty much probably like 85% net long of the overnight, right? So this is selling in the overnight, this is buying. So hence the toothpick and the elephant. This helps it. This helps it, right? Because everybody's long from the lows. Long. Everyone's long, right? Everyone's long from here. So where's the most pain? Right here. Here's all the volume from the overnight. So this could be a fade. It could be a short. That's why I'd look at that look at my chops. Just you have to think long from here. Everybody's long up here, long here. Right? We could move up fine. But if we come back down here from this level, what's that level? 132.55. It's basically a previous high in the market right here. If we fall with volume strength and weakness. This is all weak. And we're going to move back probably down to this area here. Okay. So big gap. I already talked about my gap rules earlier. Okay. Talked about them earlier. Gap and go, strong. Can't fill the gap, go higher, and then fill the gap, go higher, and then if we're weak, we go into this. We're weak, right? So that's already in the cards. Let's talk about the trades today. Now the Nasdaq has a huge gap up. Okay, it's pretty big, and I'm really liking that short. But I'd have to see a lot of things to want to go short. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the longs first. Okay, and the long really, again, it's gonna come down to I'm not interested in if it goes higher. I'm not interested in getting long like that. We can go higher, come back. Actually, let's get the green here for the long. Okay, go higher, fine. If we somehow, this will be part of the short trade, but if somehow we come back, fill the gap, I'm interested in filling the gap to go long. And you target the overnight highs. Okay, then you can target this supply zone. Same thing, if we come back down, come back to yesterday's most traded price. Now, this is very important. You have the most traded price of the week, the 9 AMA daily, a demand zone, and the most traded price of yesterday. That's a lot of confluence, okay? So we can definitely come back here. Okay. Now, one is the demand zone pop out. You can get long with the most traded price of yesterday. Two, you hold the most traded price of the week, and you can go long, right? Those are all longs. Because we're holding above these levels, okay? And then the pain would be the shorts, right? You'd get them in pain. That is the long strategy right now, okay? Let's talk about the shorts. And I'm really liking this short. These are not easy trades. Like these fades are not easy because they can happen very quickly and you don't always catch them. It's hard. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not easy, but you have to talk about it. I already gave you. Let's talk about the why. Well, if I got long here, the most traded price of yesterday is here. You have longs here, right? So what we have here is a weak low. All right. Why is this weak low? Because the overnight low and yesterday's most traded price are together. So if this breaks, now it has to. Now you got the most traded price underneath it, so that doesn't make it the cleanest scenario. But if you get volume and you break that, well, the most people traded right here, and the overnights are all long from here. That's a big pain point. That's one pain point, right? The other pain point I talked about is right here, because you have all longs from yesterday. You got that toothpick. You got the volume holding at the highs. All the volumes up here. People are getting long in here. Now you know why. You know the why. Okay, let's talk about the trade. I'd love to see a couple things here. I'll move higher and fail. Move higher into the supply zone. Fail. Come back down with volume. Really see this 132.50. You want to see if you break it with volume. Break it. I'd like to see a pullback, and then I short. And you target. You take out all these single prints here. All these single prints. Clean them up. Boom. Right here. You take one. You take one off at the gap fill. You take the next one off at the demand zone and the most traded price here. Now you hold this runner because this is the key pain point right here. That weak low. If you get volume in the market gets very weak. Now this is only for a runner because you have so much here that could hold the market up. But if you really get weak, you're gonna boom. You're gonna push through this and get a quick move, probably down the monthly VWAP, which is right here. Do we go all the way down here to the most traded price of the month? Maybe. So that's the trades I'm looking at, right? This is the fade, is the hard one. But if you come here, and your conservative short would be, let this break. Let's see some holding under this level. Then you can short and target 130.80. If you don't want to get into this craziness, let the market tell you, oh, we're holding under the most traded price of the week. Well, let's go back down to these lows, into this 41.30 area. That's what I'm looking at today. That's pretty much going to be what I'm looking at. The NQ is looking, that toothpick holding up an elephant's looking very nice. Now it might not happen, but if it does, you just were warned about it and you saw it, and we'll review it tomorrow if it happens, right? And let's just real quick look at the ES. ES has some singles, not as tasty though. See, it doesn't have the most traded price lining up with the overnight low either, like the Nasdaq, right? It doesn't have that weak low, right? Look at the Nasdaq. See how the low of the overnight matches up with the most traded price of yesterday. It just means that that's a big pain point right there. Okay? Getting all excited today. Okay. That's going to be it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. As always, please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to build this channel. I'm trying to reach 100. I'm moving towards that. I really am. I'm moving towards it. How about a thumbs up, a like? I can use all the likes I can get. Obviously, my Twitter, Gonzo719. I have that in my links now, thanks to Rosita giving me that thing. All right. And as always, let's stay patient. We got our plan. Hopefully everybody understood the plan. We have Netflix earnings after market. Okay. We already got bad Goldman Sachs. China recovery. Right. These are things. Nvidia's got an upgrade. Trying to think what else. We talked about the Goldman Sachs missing their revenue. So there's mixed messages in the market. Okay. But we got our plans. So stay green. I will do an update if necessary. If not, everybody have a good day, and I'll see you guys later.